Friend Don Costa introduced him. He became his producer. So we were down in Miami. He's doing a movie. He calls me up. He says, "Kid, come on, have dinner." I go and have dinner with him. This is like 67.
For 60 years, Paul Anka kept Frank Sinatra's darkest secrets locked away. But now, at 84, he's finally talking. In 1968, Sinatra looked him in the eye and said something that changed everything. It wasn't just about my way. It was about the mob connections, the covered-up scandals, and the bodies that disappeared when people crossed the chairman of the board. Anka watched it all happen. He stayed silent through threats, bribes, and worse. But age has a way of loosening tongues, and the stories he's telling now will destroy Sinatra's legacy forever. Paul Anka was born on 30th of July, 1941, in Ottawa Civic Hospital. He was the son of immigrants. His father, Andrew Anka, came from Damascus in 1924 with just $15 and one suitcase. In Ottawa, he opened a small restaurant called Locanda on Laurier Avenue West. They served spaghetti for 45 cents. Journalists from the Ottawa Citizen loved it. That restaurant was also Paul's world. By the time he was 7, he could name every federal cabinet minister. He picked up details from political gossip at Table 4. On Saturdays, he greeted over 300 customers. He watched his father hustle, work, smile, shake hands. He memorized it all. The family lived in a 2-bedroom house on Clearview Avenue. There were 5 of them. Winters dropped to -25 Celsius. Paul practiced singing while wearing mittens. Money was tight, but 2 things shaped him: his father's drive, his mother's Arabic lullabies. Her name was Camellia. She came from Lebanon. The melodies stayed with him. In the autumn of 1953, Paul was 12. He walked into Fisher Park High School with a $14 guitar someone had lent him. He told everyone he had a new group. He called it the Bobby Soxers. He pulled in 2 classmates, Raymond Carrière and Gerald Barbeau. They rehearsed in his basement near crates of tomatoes. Sometimes they sang past 2 in the morning. Paul taught himself piano from a worn-out John Thompson book. He even wrote lyrics during math class. By 13, he had already written 27 songs. His music teacher, Frederick Karam, remembered everyone. Once, Paul wanted to perform at the Fairmount Club in Quebec, but he was too young. So he took his mother's Buick without a license. He crossed the river. He convinced the doorman to let him sing for free. He performed I Confess, a song he had written himself. He won first prize, $25, and a week of bookings. The police gave him a warning, but everyone else saw a kid who wouldn't give up. Every Sunday, Paul sang at St. Yves, Elias Cathedral. He learned old hymns in strange time signatures like 7/8. He mixed those with boogie tunes he heard late at night on CKUA radio. The result was something new. At a YMCA contest, one judge called it weirdly hypnotic. By 1955, Paul had become the star of every local show. In just 6 months, he performed 42 times. One show was during halftime at a Rough Riders football game. 19,000 people clapped along to a song he had written. It had a strange name, Blau Weil de Viest Fontaine. He had pulled it from a book he was reading for English class. The Ottawa Journal called him the pint-sized Sinatra. At 14, he was making over 60 Canadian dollars a week. That was 3 times more than what other kids got as allowance. Then came the soup cans. Early in 1955, Paul saw a contest from Campbell's. Send in 1,500 labels and win $100 plus a free ticket anywhere in North America. For 3 months, he dug through IGA dumpsters. He filled 12 sacks with tomato soup labels. His sister Miriam helped glue them onto entry forms. On 5th of May 1955, he won. He chose Los Angeles. He had $200. He stayed with his Uncle Morris in Hawthorne and hitchhiked 18 kilometers to Modern Records. He tried to audition without an appointment. They said no. but he left with a demo and saw the Capitol Records Tower for the first time. He told himself he'd be inside it one day. That Christmas, Paul gave his parents a shock. He didn't want to go back to school. He wanted New York. His father, Andy, said fine. He gave him 6 months to get a record deal. If he failed, he had to come back and work full-time at Locanda. On 1st of January 1956, Paul boarded a CPR train with $500 and 2 suitcases. It was a 16-hour ride to Grand Central. On day 53 of his 6-month deadline, he auditioned for Don Costa at ABC Paramount. He sang Diana. Costa picked up the phone and called Andy back in Ottawa. "Your boy just wrote a million-seller," he said. Paul never worked in the restaurant again. By 1957, he had 1 song and 5 minutes. That was all. He stood in front of Don Costa with a demo of Diana. Costa listened to the first verse. Then he stopped him and called everyone into the room. By the end of that hour, Paul had a contract. They offered him 2 cents per record, twice what new singers usually got. The story spread across the label. From that day on, any surprise hit was called a 5-minute miracle. Diana was recorded on 19th May 1957 at RCA's Studio B. It came out in July. No ads, no posters. 3 weeks later, it was playing on 83 stations. By September, it hit #1 in 6 countries. It sold 9 million copies in 18 months. In Britain alone, it stayed at #1 for 9 weeks. It sold 1.25 million records there, beating everything except Rock Around the Clock. In Canada, 2 vinyl plants in Edmonton ran 24 hours a day just to meet demand. Before the song hit, Paul booked a show in Ottawa. The date was 28th October 1956. It was at the Capitol Theatre. But the crowd turned on him. They thought he was lip-syncing. They booed him. They threw coins. He ran off stage. "I'm never singing in this town again," he told the promoter. He kept that promise for 25 years. He didn't return until the city gave him the key to Ottawa in 1981. He said that night had killed his childhood. By 1959, Paul was flying non-stop. His passport showed 146,000 kilometers. London in January, Sydney in March, Tokyo in June, Havana just before Castro took power. He was 17, still needed a guardian to co-sign his shows, but he earned $15,000 a night. Some nights, he made more than Sinatra. His fans screamed so loud they threw shoes on stage just to make him bend down and touch their country's soil. In Cuba, police had to ban high heels because of him, but Paul wasn't just singing, he was learning the business. In 1958, he noticed European record deals paid better, so he renegotiated. He got 1.5 cents in the US, but 3 cents overseas. He also demanded to keep his publishing rights. He was 17 when he started Spanka Music. That meant every time someone played Diana, or Lonely Boy, or later My Way, he got the money, not the record label. By 18, his songs had earned $2.5 million. He used the money to buy a Las Vegas lounge and an apartment building in Montreal. He couldn't legally drink in either place, but he owned both. On 17th August 1960, in a dim club in Hamburg, 4 young men from Liverpool stepped onto the stage. No one knew their names, but night after night, show after show, something changed in them. The Beatles were being born. Within 3 years, they and the Rolling Stones had 8 #1 hits in the UK. And while they soared, Paul Anka faded. Every new song of his fell short. None of them even cracked the top 20. His label, ABC Paramount, cut his studio money, then dropped him. They said they wanted younger voices. Anka was just 21. Just 3 years earlier, he had sold 13 million singles. But by spring 1963, his numbers had fallen hard. Less than 1 million records sold for 2 straight quarters. That was an 80% drop. Radio turned its back too. In 1960, Wynn's New York played him 28 times a week. By May 1963, they played him only 3 times. The Beatles, that same month, got 55. Almost overnight, teen idols were out. Anka wasn't even 22, and already he was seen as old news. Most singers would have vanished. Anka didn't. He walked into ABC's New York office in December 1962 and pulled something wild. He handed them a cashier's check for $250,000, worth more than $2.5 million today, and bought back every song he'd ever recorded with them. Executives laughed. His entire back catalog was bringing in less than $40,000 a year. They called it a waste, but Anka knew better. Those songs already had 31 foreign covers. He would now get 100% from new licenses. By 1970, Pepsi commercials and re-releases of Diana and Put Your Head on My Shoulder pushed his catalog to $15 million. By 2020, that same catalog had earned around $100 million. On the original contract, he'd scribbled one small note by hand, all future formats included. That single line meant no extra payments for CDs, downloads, or streaming. Ever. In early 1963, he flew to San Juan for the film The Longest Day. On set, he met Anne de Zogeb, a model and former Miss Sweden runner-up. For the next year, he wrote her letters from airports and sent proposals with red-eye tickets. On 16th of February, 1963, they flew to Paris and were married at 2 a.m. inside the Orly Airport VIP lounge. Guests drank 1955 Dom Pérignon. Their wedding cake came by plane from Maxim's. Frank Sinatra sent a telegram that read, "Kid, you're crazy, but mazel tov." Life magazine ran 4 pages on it. Her gown had 200 pearls, sewn by hand. They danced their first dance to a live version of Put Your Head on My Shoulder, played by a 12-piece orchestra from Lilido. They stayed married 37 years, 5 daughters. They separated in 2000. Back in 1962, just a month before the wedding, Anka had written a 32-bar military march in 48 hours for The Longest Day. The film's budget was $7.5 million. He agreed to act in it for $1. Instead of pay, the producer gave him 0.25% of the global gross. The film came out 25 September 1962 and made $30.5 million in its first year. Anka's share was $76,000, 900 times his acting fee. The march won an Oscar. NATO adopted the tune. By 1965, military parades from Ottawa to Oslo were playing his melody. That same year, November 1963, Anka signed on for 6 weeks at the Sands in Las Vegas. He wasn't even 23. He was now the youngest solo headliner in town. Sammy Davis Jr. coached him. No more teen ballads. Go big band. Anka opened with Cole Porter's Night and Day, walked into the crowd during his closer, and broke casino rules just by touching hands. His pay? $2,500 per night. ABC hadn't paid him that much in a month. Critics took notice. Variety called him a teen troubadour turned Rat Pack protege. By spring 1964, he held twin residencies at the Sands and the Sahara. He had invented something new, the modern pop star Vegas residency. He would go on to headline more than 2,000 times there by 2025. Then came something no one expected. Johnny Carson was about to take over The Tonight Show in October 1962. Anka pulled out an old tune called Toot Sweet. He gave Carson half the credit in exchange for half the royalties. That small 90-second theme played 5 nights a week for 30 years. Over time, it played 1.4 million times. Each performance earned around $200. Anka collected between $800,000 and $900,000 every year. Over 30 years, it brought him around $22 million. He once joked that those checks paid for college, weddings, and even the groom's tuxedos. When the show ended in 1992, he said it felt like losing a relative. In 1964, Anka took a chance on Broadway. The lead of What Makes Sammy Run had quit. On 27th of February, Anka stepped in. He was 22. Critics doubted him. A pop idol playing a cutthroat Hollywood hustler? But he pulled off 3 weeks of 8 shows without missing a single one. Box office went up by 18%. He memorized 210 pages of dialogue and 14 songs in just 17 days. The show ended in June 1965, but the album still shows Anka on the cover. Not the original star, just the one who saved it. He later said, 8 shows on Broadway is easier than 2 midnight sets in Tahoe. By 1970, Anka was writing again. On 23rd of July, locked in a New York hotel room, he wrote She's a Lady for Tom Jones. It took him less than 3 hours. Released on 9th of January 1971, it reached number 2 on Billboard. Only Janis Joplin's Me and Bobby McGee kept it from the top. It hit number 1 in Canada and on Cashbox. It sold 5 million copies worldwide by Christmas. Anka made $2 million in royalties. He admitted he hated the lyrics, thought they were too sexist, and rewrote them in 2013 for a duet. But back in 1971, it proved he could still write hits, even for other voices. At home, life stayed wild. He and Anne raised 5 daughters: Alexandra in 1966, Amanda in 1968, Alicia in 1970, Anthea in 1971, and Amelia in 1977. They lived everywhere. A brownstone in New York, a mansion in Vegas, a cliffside house in Carmel next to Clint Eastwood. Anne wanted the girls to have 1 school per year, but the road made that tough. They'd switch coasts mid-year depending on tour stops. Alexandra remembered tracking royalty statements to guess where her father had been. Still, all 5 daughters graduated college before Anka turned 50. He framed their diplomas beside his gold records. Proof, he said, that BMI and PTA can live under one roof. In February 1968, Frank Sinatra sat down for dinner at the Fontainebleau Hotel. He was 52. Anka was 27. Sinatra looked across the table and said, "Kid, I'm done. 1 more album. Then I quit." Everyone went silent. The mob guys, the Rat Pack crew, even Sinatra's old bodyguard. He told Anka, "You never wrote me that song." That line stayed with him. 3 years later, on 13th of June 1971, Sinatra would announce retirement. But by then, Anka had already written the comeback. On 22nd February 1968, just back from Miami, Anka sat in his New York apartment. A thunderstorm hit around 2 a.m. He rolled paper into his IBM Selectric. Outside, the rain tapped in rhythm. He played a tape of Claude François' Comme d'habitude. He imagined Sinatra's voice. He started typing. And now the end is near. By 7 a.m., he had 5 pages. The rain stopped as he finished. He called Don Costa. "I got it," he said. "Frank's goodbye." Sinatra recorded it on 30th of December 1968 at Studio One in Hollywood. He did it in 1 take, 4 minutes and 35 seconds. When he hit the line, "Final Curtain," the drummer said everyone in the room felt it. It wasn't a song, it was his life. Then came the phone call. Mid-March 1969, 4:10 p.m. Sinatra rang Anka from the studio. "Kid, shut up and listen." He held the phone to the speaker. "Regrets. I've had a few." The orchestra swelled. Anka sat alone in his Beverly Hills den and cried. The single came out 15th of March. By July, it hit number 27. In the UK, it stayed on the top 40 for 75 weeks. 18 months earlier, Anka had released Puppy Love. It sold 1.3 million copies. Now, thanks to 1 stormy night and 7 quiet words, everything changed. My Way made him the youngest elder statesman of Tin Pan Alley. But he gave up the performer's share. Sinatra took it all. Anka only kept the writer's cut. By 1974, those royalties beat his entire 1957 to 1967 catalog, around $500,000 a year. Adjusted for 2025, that's 3.2 million, or he used to say on stage, "I created a monster who stole my baby." Still, the song gave him a second act. He moved from teen heartthrob to legacy builder. He wrote for Michael Jackson, for Tom Jones. All because one night, in a rainstorm, the end felt near, and that gave him a beginning. From 1971 to 1976, the strip was a jungle of secrets. Anka called it an honor code with teeth. Loyalty mattered more than anything. Silence was survival. He noticed that Sinatra's security wasn't regular hotel staff. It was handled by men like Johnny Formosa. He used to be a Teamsters enforcer. In 1973, he got hit with racketeering charges. These men didn't care about autographs. They only cared who you knew. People who talked about Sinatra's temper quietly vanished from gigs. Their union cards disappeared. One trombone player once told Anka he got a telegram. One word. Remember. No name, but the stamp said Hoboken, New Jersey. That was Sinatra's hometown. Anka also learned about what musicians whispered as the woman rule. If a woman was in Sinatra's circle, girlfriend, waitress, even a reporter, she was untouchable. In 1974, after a cocktail party at the Sahara, a young comic complimented Sinatra's date. Just her perfume. The next day, the comic's 3-month lounge booking disappeared. Gone. People started warning each other. Break that rule, and you're done. At Sinatra's banquets, seating charts even left 2 empty chairs between him and his date. A quiet border nobody dared to cross. Then came a song that set off a war. On 24 August 1974, Anka's duet with Odia Coates, "You're Having My Baby," hit #1. But it wasn't just a hit. It sparked outrage. Ms. Magazine named him Male Chauvinist Pig of the Year. The National Organization for Women gave him a Keep Her in Her Place award. Protesters marched outside radio stations. The line that thanked a woman for not getting an abortion came just a year after Roe v. Wade. People were furious. But still, the song sold fast. 1 million copies in 8 weeks. Chicago DJ Bob Dearborn read angry letters on air. It didn't stop anything. Anka, feeling the heat, sometimes sang Our Baby in live shows. But the original version stayed #1 for 3 weeks. In 2006, CNN.com ran a poll. It was voted the worst pop song ever made. Even so, it proved that a 2-minute 39-second ballad could split a nation and still go gold. Behind all the drama, there was strategy. In 1975, while promoting his live album, Anka spoke openly. He said, "You've got to figure out what they want out there and give it to them. The trick is packaging." He had been mostly quiet in the 1960s, so he studied top 40 radio. He noticed how Jim Croce and John Denver were rising, so he wrote lyrics about family, went to Muscle Shoals for a country-style sound, and teamed up with Odia Coates to ride the duet trend. It worked. Between August 1974 and May 1976, he scored 4 top 10 hits in the U.S., sold 5 million singles, and got a new record deal with United Artists. 3 albums, $1 million. That was huge for someone who hadn't cracked the top 10 since 1961. Critics said he was fake. He didn't care. He told Stereo Review, "I'm running a business, not a youth movement." But while the business soared, the family side struggled. His 2013 autobiography opens up that part. From 1974 to 1981, he was on the road around 150 nights a year. He once fell asleep during his daughter Amanda's school recital. He had flown overnight from Caesars. That moment stayed with him. Hotel logs from 1976 show he only spent 48 nights at his home in California. The pressure hit his marriage. His wife Anne filed for separation twice. They divorced in 2000. The guilt became fuel. Times of Your Life started as a Kodak commercial, but after reading letters from his 5 daughters begging him to stay home, he turned it into a full song. It reached number 7 in January 1976. The irony? The song became a hit because he was gone so much. He later said hearing it in the limo on the way to another airport felt like a punch from my own conscience. Then came the tape no one was supposed to hear. In the summer of 1985, after a weak show, a frustrated horn player slid a Sony cassette recorder under the mixer. He hit record. What he captured was 11 minutes and 17 seconds of pure fire. Anka was raging. "The guys get shirts! No t-shirts on my stage!" he shouted. Then came the warning. The band had 72 hours to shape up or ship out. The tape stayed behind closed doors for years, but in 2004, an engineer digitized it and shared it on a music forum. It spread fast. In just 3 days, it had 150,000 downloads. A private moment had gone public. Anka's angry pep talk became legend. Even musicians who'd never worked with him knew the lines. One line stood out. "I'm the only important one on that stage." That was mid-rant. He also shouted, "I don't care if it's Jesus Christ. If you don't do it my way, it's the highway." He slammed the music stand so hard it cracked. Band members started joking about it. Tour buses passed around shirts with those quotes. In 1986, 2 trumpet players laughed during rehearsal. Anka fined each of them $50. He meant it. His microphone ruled the room. The tape didn't just spread through music circles, it reached Hollywood. Screenwriters Brian Koppelman and David Levian found it while writing Ocean's 13 in 2005. They used Anka's exact words for Al Pacino's villain, Willie Bank. Pacino even matched the pause before the word hammer. When the movie came out on 7th of June 2007, musicians in the theater laughed. They knew it was the Anka tape, immortalized. Not everyone laughed. On 24 October 2005, NPR's Fresh Air asked Anka about the leak. He didn't hesitate. Called the taper, "a snake I later fired." Off-air, his tour manager confirmed the guy's name got crossed off the payroll within 48 hours. No goodbye, no references. The message was clear. Loyalty beat talent. One percussionist told VH1 that ever since, there's been an unspoken rule: no recorders. Ever. Crew bags got checked before and after shows. Then came the move. After nearly 15 years in quiet Carmel by the Sea, Anka packed up and left in March 1990. He moved 340 kilometers south to Los Angeles. Records show he bought a 5-bedroom house in Benedict Canyon for $3.6 million on 12th of April 1990. He said it was to be closer to top session players. Also, better schools for his teenage daughters. But there was more. He wanted Hollywood. Within 18 months, he wrote music for the TV series Hearts Are Wild and showed up in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Even after the rant, the scandals, the fights, Anka kept moving forward. Reinvention was his rhythm, and ambition never left his stage. Long before all this, on 16th in February 1963, Paul Anka married Anne de Zogheb in Paris. She was a fashion model. Over 37 years, they raised 5 daughters, while Anka performed 300 concerts a year. In the 90s, he was writing for Celine Dion and living on red-eye flights, and stayed in California. By their 38th anniversary, she had moved into a different house in Beverly Hills. In March 2001, they filed for divorce. It was finalized in October. Their marriage had lasted 13,980 days. In his book, My Way, Anka admitted what went wrong. He missed birthdays, school events, and once even fell asleep during a school play. Anne had to flick his ear to wake him. "I was the guest star in my own house," he wrote. He blamed the constant travel. He called the divorce the costliest encore of my career. 6 months after the split, Anka met a Swedish Miss Universe finalist named Anna Oberg. He was 60. She was 31. They met in Puerto Rico. Their son, Ethan, was born on 22 September 2005 in Los Angeles. On 8 July 2008, they married at Anka's home. But trouble came fast. Oberg called 911 twice, once over an argument about nannies, once over money. On 31 December 2009, just 531 days after the wedding, Anka filed for divorce. It was finalized in April 2010. Then came the passport scare. Oberg tried to leave the country with Ethan without permission. The system flagged it at LAX. Anka went to court and spent more than $1 million fighting for custody. Oberg accused him of using private jets to control when she could see their son. On 3 July 2017, Judge Frederick Bird ruled in Anka's favor. Ethan was 11. The judge said the boy had developed an intense dislike of his mother, and forcing him to see her could cause harm. Oberg wasn't even allowed to call him. She said it was justice for the rich. Anka had reported earning $300,000 a month, but the court still gave him full legal and physical custody. Family law experts called it the most lopsided decision of the decade. Anka married again on 22 October 2016. He was 75. The bride was Lisa Pemberton. They'd dated for 6 years. The wedding was a spectacle. He rented out the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills. Warren Buffett and Steve Wynn were on the guest list. His 11-year-old son Ethan walked the bride down the aisle. 600 white roses lined the floor. Everyone signed NDAs because Anka's prenup was 43 pages long, longer than his 1962 album Young, Alive, and in Love. On Instagram, he posted, "Yesterday I married an incredible woman, the love of my life." But by mid-2020, the story changed. The marriage ended quietly. Anka blamed the constant touring. The divorce became final on 1 April 2021. He still wears the platinum wedding band on stage. He says it reminds him to stay humble. In 2013, Anka released his autobiography. It was called My Way. Publishers expected a light memoir. What they got was 368 pages of fire. The book was co-written by David Dalton. Most of it came from Anka's voice recordings, made during espresso-fueled 3 a.m. bus rides. There were wild confessions. Sammy Davis Jr. almost ran off with a white dancer the night before JFK's inauguration. Michael Jackson once asked Anka to ghostwrite love letters to Brooke Shields. And Angie Dickinson performed a sex act on Burt Bacharach while driving 60 miles per hour down Sunset Boulevard. The lawyers wanted 42 sections removed. Anka refused to cut the mob stories. He even included the time Chicago boss Sam Giancana handed him $50,000 in chips after hearing an early demo of My Way. The book's first printing sold out in 72 hours. Sinatra's estate faxed a cold, 3-sentence statement in response. Then, in 2024, a new chapter opened. On 12th of September, Paul Anka, His Way premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. The director was John Maggio. The scene that had critics talking wasn't from the archives. It was live. Cameras followed Anka backstage before a show at the Tokyo Dome. He was 83. He handed his cardiologist a pocket ECG monitor and said, "Tell me if the encore kills me."